Horror movie, 4 people locked and held against their will in a basement. For one person, they were held captive for reportedly 10 years.
On Sundays, his father preached to the congregation. But back at home, Donnie Ray Birchfeld Jr. was allegedly running a full-blown house of horrors. Nobody could have imagined that he had 4 people hidden away in his basement, including women he chillingly referred to as his lovers. Police say he starved them, beat them, drained their bank accounts, and even bragged that he knew how to make a body disappear. And here's the scariest part. He pulled this off for years, smiling in photos, showing up at church like nothing was wrong, until one tragic moment finally blew the whole nightmare wide open. What makes this case even more unbelievable, police would never have even known what was going on inside that house if one of the victims hadn't died. From the outside, it looked picture perfect. A neat home in a quiet Lancaster, South Carolina neighborhood. The patriarch, Pastor Donnie Birchfeld, was leading Friendship Baptist Church. His wife? On social media, she looked like the classic devoted Christian mom. His adult kids? Also involved in church life. And then there's his 35-year-old son, Donnie Ray Birchfeld Jr., or Donnie, as we'll call him. To neighbors, this family was respectable, trustworthy, almost untouchable. So when police got a call on July 25th, 2025 about an unattended death inside the Birchfeld home, they weren't expecting much. Maybe an elderly relative who passed in their sleep, maybe a tragic but natural cause, nothing more. But the second paramedics walked in, they realized this wasn't going to be routine. The victim was a woman, and red flag number 1, she had already been dead for an entire day before anyone dialed 911. Suspicious, right? And then came red flag number 2. Her body told a story that words couldn't. She was rail thin, practically skeletal, like she hadn't eaten in weeks. Her skin carried bruises, scars, markings that screamed long-term abuse. By this point, alarm bells weren't just going off, they were deafening. Something about this house was rotten, and when investigators searched deeper, the horror truly revealed itself. Down in the basement, 3 more people, a man and 2 women, frail, starved looking, cut off from the outside world like they hadn't seen daylight in years. And here's the kicker, that man was the husband of the woman who had just died. So now the question wasn't just what happened, it was how did her husband, along with 2 other women, end up locked in Donnie's basement? That's where this case twists into something straight out of a nightmare. Now, the second investigators realized what they'd uncovered, that house turned into a full-blown crime scene, and all eyes pointed straight to the pastor's son, Donnie. According to police, he had been holding these 4 people in his basement for years, starving them, taking away their phones so they couldn't call for help. He even controlled when they were allowed to eat or when they were allowed to use the bathroom. But here's the question that haunts this case. How did they even end up in his basement? That's where it gets truly heartbreaking. The woman who died and her husband have been described as vulnerable adults. They were over 18 but couldn't live completely on their own. For years they tried, in fact they had their own place until about 6 years ago when they were evicted from their rental home. And that's when Donnie swooped in. Nobody knows exactly how they met, maybe through church, maybe elsewhere, but he came off as this nice guy. He offered to take them in, and that was the last time their family saw them free. The man's sister, Teresa Hinson, has since spoken out. She never stopped looking for them. She filed missing persons reports, searched for leads, prayed for answers, and then came the gut punch, finding out her brother had been trapped in Donnie's basement the entire time.
It really makes me sick that I couldn't do nothing.
I want to know why. Why them? I mean, of all the people in the world, why them?
When she was finally reunited with her brother in the hospital, she almost didn't recognize him. He looked about 70 pounds lighter, frail, feeble, barely hanging on.
He was like 70 pounds. From what they said. I mean, he looked feeble. He really didn't say anything because I think he was still like trauma and in shock. I walked out the room and just busted out crying because it was just so heartbreaking.
Now Teresa says she's waiting for answers and demanding justice for her brother and his wife.
I'm hoping he gets charged to the fullest extent. Honestly. honestly.
But as devastating as their story is, it was the discovery of the 2 other victims in that basement that would truly shake this case. As if this case wasn't already disturbing enough, investigators uncovered something that made it even more twisted. The other 2 women found in that basement weren't just random victims. They were romantically involved with Donnie. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. According to investigators, one of the women had been living under Donnie's control since 2015. That is nearly a decade. Think about that for a moment. For 10 years, her family was out there, probably wondering where she was, maybe searching, maybe grieving, while all along she was trapped in his basement. The second woman, she had only been there since September 2024, but the abuse she endured was just as horrifying. And Donnie's grip on them wasn't just physical. He allegedly stripped away every ounce of independence. No cell phones, no contact with the outside world, no freedom to come and go. He controlled everything. When they could eat, when they could sleep, even when they were allowed to use the bathroom. And if they dared to resist, he lashed out. One woman told the police that Donnie threatened to kill her. She said he strangled her during assaults, and sometimes until she lost consciousness. And chillingly, she claimed he told her he knew how to make a body disappear because he had past experience. She admitted to investigators she lived every single day in constant fear that she would never make it out alive.
Investigators say he prevented victims from going to the bathroom without his permission, wouldn't feed them, and prevented them from contacting loved ones. He's also accused of choking one victim so long she lost consciousness.
But here's the kicker. Donnie wasn't just controlling their bodies. He was controlling their wallets too. And the financial trail investigators uncovered, it showed just how far he was willing to go for power and control. And it left everyone stunned. Now, you would think that holding people hostage in your basement would be enough for one nightmare, but Donnie's control went even further. He wasn't just trapping his victims physically and emotionally, he was exploiting them financially too. Investigators uncovered that Donnie had been using the couple's debit and credit cards like his personal bank account. The records are jaw-dropping. Since 2021, he racked up at least 32 transactions at Walmart, spending over $2,000. And here's the thing, not one of those purchases was for the victims. Every single charge was for Donnie himself. But that was just the beginning. Court documents show that over an 8-month span in 2025, Donnie took nearly $12,000 from his victims' bank accounts. And he wasn't spending it on survival needs. Investigators say he used their money to pay down his own mountain of credit card debt. Basically, while his victims wasted away in the basement, Donnie was using their money to clean up his credit score. One police report even states bluntly, all of these purchases were made solely for the suspect's use and not the victims. And if you think that's shocking, his public life makes it even more surreal, because on social media, Donnie was out here living it up, posting photos with professional wrestlers, posing like a fanboy, wearing big chains around his neck, looking like your average guy enjoying his hobbies. But behind closed doors, those chains weren't just an accessory. They were symbolic of the total control he allegedly had over people's lives, down to their last dollar. And I know what you're probably wondering. Where was his family during all of this? Anything? And yet, despite all of this evidence piling up, his family wasn't condemning him. They were defending him, which raises the question, what did they know and when? Here's the part that takes this case from chilling to almost surreal. Because while investigators were laying out evidence of abuse, starvation, and fraud, Donnie's own family wasn't condemning him. They were defending him. Think about that. This is a family that lived under the same roof in the same house where police say people were locked in a basement dungeon. And yet, instead of outrage, they are pushing back against the story. His father, Pastor Donnie Birchfield Sr., told reporters that the whole thing was being twisted. His exact words, "It's amazing how things have been twisted in the news. I'd like to tell you more, but I can't." Then came his sister, who jumped on Facebook, practically pleading with the public to stop judging her brother. She wrote, "Before you share or repost anything about my family, please stop and put yourself in our place. What if it were your son, your brother, or your friend being gossiped about and judged online? Spreading speculation, repeating unverified claims, and adding commentary only causes more harm. It's not helping anyone." Even his stepmother weighed in, sharing a post reminding people not to believe everything they see in the news. Meanwhile, neighbors were reeling, shocked, horrified, trying to wrap their heads around how something like this could have been happening right in their own community.
This is a quiet area. This is a quiet neighborhood, and I was shocked to have anything happen, and just to think that this was going on right around the corner from our house, right around the corner from the park, right around the corner. And there are other children, it's not just mine.
A longtime neighbor, Christy Barnes, said she'd lived near the Birchfelds for over 10 years. She never really interacted with Donnie or his dad, but she described his mom and sister as nice people. And yet, looking back now, she cannot shake the unease.
There are a lot of different things that have gone on that now, while they may not be directly related, they do tend to make a little more sense. Yeah. Feeling that human aspect of it, I feel terrible for all the families involved, individuals involved, and the things that everybody's going through.
And that is the horror of it. To the outside world, Donnie's family looked like pillars of the church. But behind closed doors, neighbors now describe his actions as sick and incomprehensible. And the deeper police dig, the clearer it becomes. The real nightmare inside that home was far worse than anyone in Lancaster imagined. When it comes to the law, Donnie isn't just in a little bit of trouble. Oh, no, no, no. The list of charges against him is massive. We are talking 16 charges in total. 16! False imprisonment, abuse of vulnerable adults, domestic of a high and aggravated nature, exploitation, identity theft, financial fraud. The list just keeps going. And prosecutors are not stopping there. They have already warned the more charges could be on the way, which makes sense because investigators are still piecing together how this nightmare went on for so long and how many people might have been involved.
A Lancaster County man is in jail accused of holding people against their will in his basement. Police also say he used their credit cards to buy things for himself and pay his debts.
But here's one thing that is important to know. Donnie has not been charged with murder, at least not yet. Why? Because investigators still don't know exactly how the women in his home died. The official cause of death hasn't been released, and until that report comes in, there is still a cloud of uncertainty hanging over this case. Meanwhile, Donnie's attorney, M. Ryan Payne, is sticking to the playbook. He released a statement reminding the public that his client is presumed innocent and promising to fight it out in court where facts and evidence matter. But just when you think this case can't get any stranger, investigators reveal Donnie wasn't the only one arrested. And the twist about who else was in cuffs that day, that's where this case takes another jaw-dropping turn. Just when you think this case couldn't get any stranger, it does. Because Donnie wasn't the only one arrested when police raided that house of horrors. Investigators also took a woman into custody that very same day. And she wasn't just some random person caught in the chaos. She was romantically linked to Donnie. On social media, she posted photos of the two of them together just a couple of months before the arrests. She even shared a picture of Donnie kissing her on the forehead. To outsiders scrolling past, it looked like an innocent, even sweet relationship, but to investigators, it looked a whole lot like complicity. Because when the dust settled, she wasn't treated as a bystander, she was charged. Her charge? Failure to report the abuse and neglect of vulnerable adults. What does that mean? Prosecutors believe that she knew what was happening inside that basement and chose not to say a word. Court records show she was booked on August 1st, the exact same day as Donnie. But here's where the difference between them is staggering. While Donnie sat behind bars on a $150,000 bond, she posted just $2,000 and walked free. And here's the part that makes your skin crawl. The address listed for her arrest, the same house where Donnie allegedly kept his victims locked up for years, which means she was living right there in the middle of it all. So now the question hangs heavy over this case. Was she another victim trapped in Donnie's twisted orbit? Or was she an accomplice who stood by, watching and saying nothing. That's what prosecutors and the public are still trying to figure out. And if she could walk away after posting bond, what else is still hidden in this case? Now, this is what makes this case truly terrifying, because Donnie's alleged dungeon of horrors, it's not the only story like this. Think back to Cleveland, the Ariel Castro kidnappings. On the outside, Castro was just a devout Catholic, a school bus driver, and a father, but secretly, he was a predator hiding in plain sight. Between 2002 and 2004, he abducted Michelle Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina DeJesus. Michelle was only 21, on her way to a custody hearing for her son when she vanished. Police assumed she'd run away. A year later, Amanda Berry disappeared on her 17th birthday after leaving her shift at Burger King. At first, the FBI wrote her off as a runaway too, until a week later when her mother got that chilling call from a man who said, "I have Amanda. She's fine and will be home in a few days." But she never came home. And then there was Gina DeJesus, just 14. On her way back from school, she trusted Castro enough to accept a ride because she was friends with his daughter. That one decision changed her life forever. All three girls were trapped inside Castro's house for years, until 2013 when Amanda Berry finally escaped with the daughter she had given birth to while in captivity. Police rushed in, rescued the others, and Castro's double life crumbled. He was charged with over 900 counts, sentenced to life plus 1,000 years, and a month later he died by suicide in his prison cell. But here's the thing, every time cases like this come out, the neighbors say the same haunting words: "I had no idea." Sylvia Colin, co-founder of Cleveland Missing, the nonprofit launched with Gina DeJesus herself, said it best.
I would rather have a neighbor be upset with me that maybe I said something that perhaps was inaccurate than what if somebody was there.
And she reminded everyone, survivors need time and space to heal. Communities should respect that, support them, and not re-traumatize them with gossip or speculation.
So really allowing people to reacclimate back into whatever life that they were taken from. And I would say honor that and respect that. You can still love on them and care about them. And I would say the community should do that.
But maybe that's the real horror here. That sometimes the people we least expect, the ones smiling in family photos, preaching on Sunday mornings, holding your hand in prayer, are capable of unspeakable things. And as for Donnie Ray Birchfeld Jr., with 16 charges already, and prosecutors warning more are coming, this story is far from over. Because if he was able to keep 4 people hidden for years inside his family's home, the question is, what else might still be out there?